for the opportunity to be with you all today and for taking time out of your busy Monday morning or wherever you are, busy Monday, to join us. So we have a few things that we'll cover today, mostly around, being a leader in 2019 is really challenging, especially as we're all women trying to navigate the workplace. And so we'll use today learning a little bit about chronic stress, the impact of chronic stress has on our health and well-being, as well as really wanting to provide you an opportunity today for this to be an interactive workshop and for you to interact along the way. So if you haven't already, it's a great opportunity to grab a pen and a piece of paper or maybe a notebook so you can take some notes during the activities as we go. I'm a holistic leadership and wellness coach. I am so excited to be with you today. And while I can share a lot about my background, I spent the last 10 years working in healthcare administration and saw the impact that health had on my colleagues, on patients who were in the hospital and in the cancer center, as well as myself and my family. And so that was really the impetus behind founding the Bold Collaborative as a way to help women who are in leadership roles really learn how to own and manage their stress so they can go from just surviving, which I was definitely doing a few years ago, to really thriving. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly. And what I'd love to start with is an opportunity for folks to just share a bit of content in the chat. So maybe share, what was it about today's topic that drew you to join, or what are you hoping to learn over the next hour? I really want to make sure that today's session is geared towards the things that you're hoping to learn. So seeing your content or your answers to those questions would be really fantastic. All right, and as folks are working on entering their answers, we'll just go through kind of a few ground rules. So again, really wanting this session to be interactive. I have content that I want to go over, but really want to make sure that we're able to gear that exactly towards what you're hoping to learn today. So in that, we want to make sure we're creating a safe space where everyone feels free that they can share and we respect confidentiality. Really asking you to show up as yourself. So being able to show up as your authentic self really gives others permission to do the same. The change happens in the silence and when we share. So being able to be open and present. I know many of you are probably at work as well. So if you're multitasking, that's definitely okay too. And then of course, we want to make sure we're having fun over the next hour. And it looks like one person's wanting to learn self-care and self-compassion techniques, strategies to lead with compassion, and create nourishing team environments. So we'll definitely go into that. Great to hear that. Also hoping to learn about incorporating more self-care and balancing my responsibilities. Absolutely. It is so challenging to figure out how to do those things as we're leaders in this world. And a leader can really mean being a leader at work, in a corporation, maybe you own your own business, but we're all definitely leaders in our own lives. And then another piece we're hoping to learn is how to navigate negative emotions in overwhelming situations, also learning to work under stress or cope with it. Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. It is really challenging to be in work situations where we have those negative emotions come up and try to work within those. So we'll definitely cover that together today. So as I mentioned, if you haven't already, go ahead and grab pen and paper and something to take notes on, and we'll make sure that we have a really interactive session today. And also one other piece from Brittany about self-care and compassion. So we'll definitely go into that as well. So why does living a nourished life matter? I'm a data person. I like to definitely have information that helps me understand the why behind things. So I figured we'd start with a few points that help us understand why living a nourished life matters. So one, chronic stress causes inflammation and reduces our immune function. So when we're chronically stressed, our body pumps cortisol, the stress hormone, throughout our entire body to react to that stressful situation. And that could be good, right? We want to make sure our body is able to react in a way that keeps us safe if we're stepping out in traffic and maybe a fast car is coming, or if we need to, get out of the way of a foul ball at a baseball game. We want those stress hormones to pump through our body so that we can make those split-second decisions that do keep us healthy and safe. The issue comes when we have that chronic stress and our body's always pumping that cortisol. It really reduces our ability to have a great immune system, and it also causes that chronic stress. And we know that 70% of chronic disease is likely a result of lifestyle choices and is preventable. So I really like these odds. The fact that 70% of chronic disease is preventable by the choices that we make in our life is very exciting to me, in the sense that it means that we have the ability on our own to really make the choice of how we navigate our stressful situations and how that impacts our body. So chronic stress leads to inflammation, which leads to disease, but we do have the ability to influence that pretty heavily with the choices that we make each day and how we care for ourselves. Some additional information is that 80 to 90% of doctors' visits right now are due to stress-related conditions. To me, when I read this statistic, it just kind of blew my mind. This is an incredible amount of time people are spending in the doctor's office because stress has led them to that doctor's appointment. Burnout is definitely a big thing that we're all talking about in the leadership space these days. And the Harvard Business Review estimates that burnout costs about $125 to $190 billion each year in healthcare spending in the United States. And that just continues to grow year over year. So as we're thinking about ourselves as leaders and taking care of our team, it is incredibly important that we are helping ourselves and our team members avoid that burnout. Not only is it expensive from a healthcare perspective, but certainly expensive as we're learning to lead and navigate teams in this stressful environment as well. And then chances are, if you're not managing your stress, it's managing you. And so it's really critical in these times that leadership is such a challenging situation that we take some time to sink in and think about how we can manage our stress a bit better so we can be in the driver's seat and our stress isn't the one that's driving the bus. So I also like to think of things in kind of numbers. So 4 tips. We're going to go through 4 different sections today on how to be a nourished leader. So we'll tune into the basics. We'll talk about a stress management framework that's been a game changer for me. We'll also talk about nourishing ourselves both on and off the plate. And then we'll talk about broadening our definition of success. So for our first activity, I really want to take some time to be able to tune into your basics. So the quote here on the screen says, "The willingness to tune into your body's needs and taking action towards meeting those needs is the single most powerful commitment you can make." And now that we know the serious impact that chronic stress can have on our bodies, the one tool that we always have access to manage that stress is our breath. And so I'd love to take the next couple of minutes to run through a quick activity. So what you're going to do is, on your piece of paper, you're going to draw a T-chart, and I'm going to do the same. And on one side of the T-chart, you're going to write the word before, and on one side of the T-chart, you're going to write the word after. So if you're following along on the video, this is what it could look like. And I want you to take a few moments to write down in your before column how you're feeling today in this moment, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So physically might be, you know, how your body is feeling. Maybe you didn't sleep well, so you're feeling a bit achy. Mentally, kind of what's going through, you know, your brain right now. And then emotionally, kind of how you're feeling on that emotional level. What's coming up for you at the moment? So again, if you're following along in the video, just taking a look at how you're feeling before, taking a moment to write down how you're feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally. And this is a tool that you can keep in your back pocket at any time and really pull out to use. So just anybody want to put in the chat how they're feeling, what their befores are how they're capturing those befores, what they're feeling. Yeah, and just a quick reminder, if you're not on mute yet, if you could mute yourself as well, especially as we go into this next portion. All right, and if anyone wants to share their befores, feel free to pop them into the chat. If not, what we're going to do really quickly is go into a bit of some breath work. So find a comfortable seat and settle in. All right, Michaela says her body is tired and achy. Yeah, so it's really great to tune into. Thanks so much for sharing. So find a comfortable seat. You can either be sitting on the ground if you're at home, or somewhere where you're able. You could also lay down if that's what your body is asking for. But we're going to take the next few minutes to really dive into a quick meditation. So finding a comfortable seat and just really taking an opportunity for a deep inhale and a big open mouth exhale. Yeah, and I think folks are saying they're feeling anxious and tired, or run down and anxious. And placing your palms, it overwhelms but happy. That's also great to check in with. So for this meditation, if you're wanting some additional energy, you can place your palms up on your lap. If you're wanting to feel a bit more grounded, so if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling overwhelmed, facing your palms down can be really helpful as we go into this meditation. Another thing you can do is put one hand on your heart, another hand on your belly, just as a way to really connect to yourself. So again, starting with that big, deep inhale, an open mouth exhale. And when you're ready, and if you feel comfortable, choosing to close your eyes and start by finding the breath that's right for you. So something that's not too fast and not too slow, but just right. And if you're not in a spot where you can close your eyes, that's okay too. You can still follow along with the prompts. But trusting yourself that you can find the breath that's right for you by finding just the right amount of inhale and just the right amount of exhale. Trusting that you can find the breath that's right for you by finding the right amount of breath to receive and the right amount of breath to release. And also trusting that you can find the right tempo of breath. Just that right pace, bring it in, and to let it go. And you'll know you found the breath that's right for you when there's a little less tension, a little more ease, and when there's a sense of release and release. And if that sense of release or relief is not here for you yet, that's okay too. Just knowing you're right where you're supposed to be. And now move it to an even inhale and an even exhale. And if you're able to put yourself on mute, that's great too. So with that even inhale and that even exhale, start with breathing in for a count of 5 and exhaling for a count of 5. And if 5 is too much, you can decrease a count to a count of 3 evenly. Inhaling and exhaling for a count of 3 or 5, all the way up to a count of 10. Whatever feels right for you in this moment. So keep going with that even inhale and that even exhale for just a few more rounds on your own. And now see if you can smooth out any sputters in your breath. Let the breath wash over you like a wave, bringing in nourishment with the inhale and releasing anything you're ready to let go of with the exhale. And staying here for a moment, thinking about the breath washing over you like a wave, bringing in nourishment with the inhale, and then releasing anything that's no longer serving you in this moment with that exhale. Now taking a moment to tune into the crown of your head and picturing warm sunlight or maybe warm honey, whatever imagery works best for you, flowing from the top of your head all the way down your body, through your jaw, your neck, helping you to release tension as you picture this warm sunlight moving down through your body. Really tuning into those areas of your body that already feel nourished. And those areas of your body that maybe need some extra nourishment today. So having that warm light, that warm honey fill all those nooks and crannies. Scanning down through your core and your belly, all the way down through your legs to where your feet are meeting the ground. And then just taking a moment to feel that sense of that warm light, that warm honey filling your body, nourishing your body. And really soaking that in. Then you can release any breath control that you might be holding on to. When you feel complete with tuning in to how that warm light is filling and nourishing your body, start coming back to the breath that's right for you. Taking a moment to come back into the room, into your body. And then you can drop your chin to your chest. And if you want, you can rub your palms together. I like to create some heat with my palms, rubbing them on your body, maybe patting them on your legs. Really waking yourself back up and bringing yourself back to the conversation. And now if you want to take a moment, so you've captured your befores, how you're feeling physically, mentally, and energetically, or emotionally, excuse me. Take a moment and capture your afters. So how you're feeling after. Tune in to how you're feeling physically. You know, what was the result of having that warm sunlight hit every part of your body and flow through that body? How are you feeling mentally? And then emotionally, how are you feeling emotionally after going through that exercise? So Lucy says she feels calmer. Great. Anybody else with wanting to share how they're feeling? So the great thing about our breath is that it's a tool that we always have access to. And from an anatomy perspective, our breath is the one response that we have in our body that really allows us to get into that rest and digest experience. So moving from that fight or flight experience when we're stressed and that cortisol is pumping through our body, our breath connects us back to that rest and digest phase. So you can do this at any point. We were doing that maybe for about 5 minutes. And so I'm seeing that folks are saying they feel easy, they feel soft, shoulders are relaxed, calmer with a bit more clarity, which is all great. And as I was saying, from an anatomy perspective, our breath massages our vagus nerve, which runs up and down our spine. It helps to connect with our parasympathetic control of our heart, of the lungs, and of our digestive tract. So if you think about that cortisol pumping through your heart, your lungs, and your digestive tract when you're feeling really anxious, our breath has that ability to bring us back to that rest and digest space. It also helps us expand our capacity to deal with our stress. So the things that might normally trigger us, if we have a regular relationship with our breath, we have a bigger capacity to navigate those things that may cause us stress. And it really gives us space between something happening and our reaction. So, you know, we work with our kids or, you know, our yoga students to say, taking a breath provides us that pause between something that happens and then making a reaction or making a decision. So thinking of that breath as that pause that you can take for yourself, to take care of yourself in those moments when things are stressful. The other amazing thing about breath is that it can actually expand our capacity for decision making. So as leaders, we're constantly being asked to make decisions. And science is showing that about 65% of our immune system lives in our gut, and about 70% of our nervous system actually lives there as well. And so oftentimes as leaders, we think that we only have access to our brain when we're making decisions. But the really neat thing about this mind-gut connection that we're starting to learn a lot more about is that we have space from the top of our head all the way to the bottom of our gut to really access to make our decisions. And so you hear a lot about, you know, tapping into your intuition or tapping into that gut instinct. So knowing that breath is a way for you to more easily access that gut instinct and gut intuition and get out of kind of those thinky thoughts or, you know, that brain power that most of us rely on so heavily to make all of our decisions every day. So most people in the chat mentioned that they feel calmer or more clarity. They feel, you know, more relaxed. Sometimes tapping into our breath also makes us feel worse. So sometimes there's this thinking that meditation or breath work is supposed to make us feel better or feel more calm and feel more zen. And sometimes that's really the case. Other times, our breath can show us that we really are exhausted and that our body is asking for something else. So if anybody had that experience where they're actually feeling worse after the meditation, and if you want to share about that in the chat, please go ahead. Sometimes that is an effect of breath work and meditation, and that's okay. That's just your body giving you a signal that something needs to shift a bit. All right. So moving on to kind of our next topic here. Our breath is one way that we can begin to have a relationship with our stress. But what I'd really love to dive into is a framework that's really helped me manage my stress well over the last few years. And so, as the note says here, it doesn't matter what we're doing, it's really our relationship to what we're doing that creates our experience and that really creates our reality. So what's stressful to me may not be stressful to certain folks on the phone, but it might be my relationship to that thing that I'm doing that is stressful, and perhaps you have a different relationship to that thing, and so it's not stressful for you. So we'll run through 4 steps that are really critical for managing your stress. And this can be used personally for your own personal practice, or it can actually be shared with your team or your family members as well, as a bit of a conversation starter about how you manage stress in a team setting or in a family dynamic. So the first piece in this stress management framework, and I'm looking over to the side because my slides are over here, is bringing awareness to your stress. So oftentimes, we're up against our stress so closely that we just can't see it. We know we have a lot of anxiety. We know that we're feeling really tense, but we just may not know why. So our breath can help us really bring awareness to that stress. So the first step is bringing awareness to it and recognizing that we're actually feeling stressed. The second step is having curiosity around the stress. So it's really easy to judge our stress and to blame our stress, even get angry with our stress. But being a bit more compassionate with ourselves. I know folks at the beginning mentioned, how do I have more self-compassion? So having curiosity around your stress is one way to really start to unfold the details around your stress. So asking yourself the question, what am I learning here? Or what's here for me? Can be a really critical piece to helping to dive a bit deeper into those root causes of our stress. And then step 3 is really making a choice. So we have a choice in everything we do. Doesn't necessarily mean that we like the consequences of our choice. If I choose, not to do my laundry, I'm not going to have clean clothes. But if that's the choice I'm wanting to make, I have to be willing to accept those consequences of not having those clean clothes. So we have a couple of different options when we're thinking about making a choice. So you can either accept the situation and what's going on, and really think through, this is just a situation. It's temporary. I'm going to accept it. It doesn't mean we like what's going on, but perhaps our decision is not to put any additional energy towards the situation and kind of just accept it for the moment. We can change how we're showing up in the situation. So that's option 2 for making a choice. So changing the way you're interacting, changing the way that, you're perceiving a situation. Not necessarily something that's easy, but certainly something that we always have the option to do. Making the choice to leave the situation is also an option. And then, of course, your 4th option is just to keep on stressing. But if you're going to pick that one, I recommend that you pick it wholeheartedly and just kind of go for it. Sometimes the option of not stressing is more stressful than the option of just being in stress. So remembering that you do have that option to continue to be in stress, but perhaps putting some parameters about how long you're going to allow yourself to stay there. And then the 4th piece of this is dropping your judgment around your choice. So even if it's just by 10%, really dropping your judgment around that. And Janelle says these are such simple things at first, but we really do overlook them because life seems to move by so quickly. Exactly. And that's really where this practice of getting in touch with our breath, even if it's for 10 seconds, can really help to create a little bit of space between that bringing awareness to our stress and what decision we're going to make about how to address it. So a couple of examples of how I've used this framework personally. So I was working in a corporate setting a few years ago, had a really challenging team situation, a really challenging project situation with a critical deadline. And I knew I could no longer show up the way that I was showing up as a leader and for my own health and well-being. And so my body was raising awareness around the fact that I was stressed because I had broken my foot twice in 1 year, and that also resulted in me needing knee surgery. So my body was literally telling me, you can no longer go down this path of this much stress for much longer. It was just continuing to tune up or to turn up the volume to get me to pay attention with what was going on in my body. And so I knew I had the opportunity to change the way I was showing up in this situation. You know, I asked myself, what am I learning? What's really here for me? And what came up was that it was an opportunity for me to be able to, for the first time in my life, really take a stand for being a leader, but also being a leader who took care of herself. And so I knew if I just left the situation, I would be missing out on that opportunity to really start practicing that self-care and self-compassion. I knew if I'm going through kind of that making a choice framework, I knew I didn't want to just accept what was going on. The stressful situation had been going on for too long, and my body was telling me by, breaking and needing surgery that something needed to shift. I knew I couldn't keep stressing, and I knew I wasn't ready to leave that job. And so the option that was left was for me to change the way I was showing up to the situation. And so previously, when my team got stressed about something, the way that they knew I was paying attention to what was going on is that I would get wound up with them. I would, get excited and really show them with kind of my energy that I was taking their updates seriously. I was taking them seriously, but I also knew in my body that was no longer a way I could show up energetically as a leader anymore. And so the choice I made was to change the way I was interacting, and really chose to reel back kind of how lively I got when my team brought me stressful situations. And so even though I made that change, there was still a bit of work to do because my team was so used to seeing me get excited with them that was their signal that I got it. And so as I was making the change to show up energetically in a different way, I also had to verbalize a lot more to them that I really understood what was going on, and I was really going to be on their team to help them decide how we were going to move forward. So again, that's just a simple situation of being able to walk through that framework and show that we always do have that choice. Another silly example that I'll share, I mentioned laundry a little bit earlier, but laundry used to be the thing that stressed me out so much. And so, I wouldn't do my laundry and then I'd feel guilty about not doing my laundry. And when I would go through this framework and would make the choice not to do it, I found that if I could judge myself just 10% less, it completely switched my experience. So I could either go out and enjoy what I was doing instead of laundry, or I, just chose to do laundry and knew that was my choice, that it wasn't something that I was, forcing myself to do. So again, a silly example. But the goal here is really to decrease the space we have between stress and joy. And the laundry example is perfect today. I'm stressing myself out around the laundry thing. Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. It seems like such a silly example, but something I think most of us can relate to. And the key here is really making a choice that's right for you in the moment. So what's right for you today is maybe not the thing that's right for you tomorrow, but really starting to practice being able to tune into yourself in the moment and making the choice that's right for you. So we'll move a bit into taking care of ourselves both on and off the plate. So true leadership is really born from nourishing our relationship to ourselves, not controlling our external world. So as leaders, there's a lot of things we're asked to fix or develop. And oftentimes, the relationship really starts with us and not the external thing that we're being asked to work on. So one thing I really like thinking about, I'm a recent graduate from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, where we really talk about nourishing ourselves with two different types of food, primary food and secondary food. So secondary food is anything that we put on our plate. And while that's a really critical component of nourishment, it's not the most critical piece of how we're nourishing ourselves. So primary food, thinking about things like career and joy or financial wellness or your spirituality or your relationship with family or stress, that is what primary food is. And that is almost as critical, if not more critical, than the food that we're putting into our bodies. And so we have a lot of tools in our modern society to measure what we're eating, how we're nourishing our body. I'm sure many of us have used, a number of different apps to either track our calories or, other ways of eating. And so society, more or less, has given us easy ways to check in on how we're doing with nourishing ourselves on the plate. There's less tools available to really check in with how we're nourishing ourselves off of the plate. So the next exercise I really want to run through is an activity called energy gains and drains. And this has hands down been the most beneficial tool I've learned over the last 5 years. It's something that you can do for yourself and may change at any point as you're doing this at different points in your life. It's something I've done with my teams. It's something I've done with my husband. It's something I've done with executive leaders. And it's really critical way of kind of getting to know yourself a little bit better. So again, you're going to draw another T-chart on your paper. Giving away all my secrets, that T-charts are one of my favorite tools. And on one side of the tool, you're going to write down the top 5 things that are currently draining your energy. So you'll see a little negative sign here. Take a few moments to write down 5 things that are currently draining you of energy. So maybe it's your laundry that you know is waiting for you at home. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have with your boss. Maybe it's something that's going on with a friend or a family member. Taking a moment to write down those things. And if you want to pop any of those into the chat, you can certainly do that. And then as your next step, you're going to write down the top 5 things that are currently bringing you energy. So maybe it's knowing that you already worked out this morning, or that you have an exercise class you're going to at lunch. Maybe it's, drinking water is really nourishing for you right now, or spending time with a pet or your children, that's bringing you nourishment. So taking a moment to write 5 things down that are currently bringing you energy. And then when you've had a chance to write down those 10 things from both categories, you're going to use both sides of that T-chart now. Circle the top 3 ways you're actually spending your time. So out of that list of 10 things, where is your time going? And then from both categories, you're going to star the top 3 ways you actually want to be spending your time. So some may overlap with the ways, with the items that you circled, some may not. And this is really an opportunity for you to check in with how you're doing nourishing yourself off the plate. So if anybody wants to share any feedback from, what they're observing from the things that they circled versus the things that they starred. When I first did this activity about 4 years ago, the things that were on my energy drains list were things like eating too much sugar, going out and drinking, too much with my friends, not working out, not eating lunch while I was at work. And so it was a really great opportunity for me to check in with, gosh, I'm spending all of my time on things that are draining me. How do I start making small shifts as a way to start focusing a bit more on what's actually giving me energy? So somebody said all my circles were drains and all my stars were gains. And so again, going back to our stress management framework of 1, bringing awareness to that, 2, having some curiosity around that, 3, making your choice, and then 4, whatever your choice is, not judging it. So there are certain small steps you can take to maybe just have 1 circle over to your energy gains column. That's great. The other thing that this tool has been great for, I've done this, like I said, with my teams. It's really great to tune into what drains either your colleagues' energy or what gives them energy. It's great for doing with your direct reports as well. I did this activity about a month ago, and I blew my mind because where I was spending most of my time was worrying about things. It wasn't actually stuff that I was doing that was taking up my energy. It was worrying about things that was taking all of my energy. And so again, a really great tool for us to use to check in with ourselves. And somebody mentioned at the beginning wanting to talk a little bit more about caring for yourself and self-care. So this thought came to me last night as I was preparing for this, is self-care tends to be the thing that's quickly crossed off our list. There are so many things going on in the world and with our priorities that self-care tends to be the items that are first to go. But if we flip that and think about caring for yourself as not being negotiable, it really lays the foundation for how we can show up for ourselves in life and work. So I like the idea of playing around with caring for yourself versus self-care, and what's the one thing you can do to care for yourself today. So one thing I want to dive into here in our last bit of time together is finding your success. So there are so many spots of comparison for ourselves, whether we're comparing ourselves against our peers, people we see on social media. It's really critical to tune into, what our own definition of success is. And so if you want to pop into the chat, sharing a little bit about what your own definition of success is, or maybe what it's been and how it's evolved, you can go ahead and do that. For a long time, for me, my definition of success was title and paycheck. And while it was critically important for me to be tied from my heart to what I was doing at work, title and paycheck were the 2 things that I used as my only check marks to gauge my value and gauge my success. So what are the things that you're telling yourself about success? And it wasn't until I hit complete burnout and made the choice to leave my corporate job that I realized that my net worth was not equal to my self-worth. As soon as I removed that steady paycheck and that title, it was an opportunity for me to really broaden that definition of success. I was forced to, because I no longer had that title and that paycheck to hang on to. And so this is a new definition of success that I'm playing around with, and I invite you to do the same. So really asking yourself, am I doing the things I want to be doing? So does the way I'm spending my time bring me joy? Am I doing it in the way that I want to be doing it? Does it afford me the lifestyle that I want to be living? And do I feel how I want to feel? I think oftentimes when we're diving into success, we forget that we have feelings and we have a body, and we want to take care of it. And so a lot of our success is driven from what we're doing externally. And this piece of how do I want to feel while I'm doing what I'm doing is so critical. And So if the answer is no to any of these questions, that's where the work begins. If you're not doing what you want, the answer to that question is no, that's great. That's a really great starting point for you to then start to tune in to being a bit more curious. What is it that you do want to do? You know, what are the steps that you can take to move more in that direction? You know, if you're doing everything you want to do, you're, you know, having the lifestyle you want to have, but you're still not feeling the way you want to feel, that's also a data point for you to start digging in a little bit more and understanding a bit more, you know, the shifts that you can make to support a lifestyle in a way that lets you show up in a way that you feel healthy and strong. So if you have any feedback or any questions or thoughts about this framework, feel free to pop those in the chat as well. And I know we've gone through, you know, a ton of information in the last 45 minutes. So remembering that transformation doesn't happen overnight. You know, one of my coaches told me that transformation happens for the people who are willing to show up and willing to put in the work. And so remembering that, you know, transforming how we take care of ourselves is like any other type of new skill that we need to learn. Most of us don't go out and run a marathon without any training, but you know, are into the Olympics without any training. And so building your muscle for caring for yourself and for nourishing yourself is also a skill that's really critical to learn how to build. So sustainable transformation comes from finding the breath that's right for you. And I put breath in quotation marks because that framework or that phrase can be applied to so many different aspects of life, whether it's, you know, finding the job that's right for you, finding, you know, what you're going to order for lunch that's right for you in the moment. Maybe today it's French fries and tomorrow it's a salad, or maybe it's, you know, French fries and a hamburger for the next week. And then the week after that, you're wanting to eat a bit more salad. So really critical to finding the breath or the thing that's right for you and what will serve you best in this moment. And remembering to check in with yourself, because what serves you best in this moment may not serve you best tomorrow or the next day. Progress over perfection. So if anybody is a recovering perfectionist, I certainly am. Sometimes I slip back into that perfectionist mode. It's important to remember that this shift doesn't have to occur all at once. So asking yourself, what 10% shift can you make to help yourself feel more nourished? And then removing the timeline. So oftentimes we have all these timelines in our head of I have to do X, Y, and Z by this date. If I don't, it means, you know, I haven't reached my goal and I failed. But oftentimes when we remove the pressure of the timeline, things tend to happen with more ease and more joy. So again, you know, not feeling like you have to remove the timeline for everything, but if you're feeling that stress and that pressure of doing something by a certain deadline or by a certain timeline, being able to remove that timeline from your self-development plan, and things tend to happen with a bit more ease that way. And I like to say, you know, success is interesting, but sustainable success is really what's interesting. And so, again, using this kind of framework to think through how can you make nourishing yourself a sustainable thing, something that's non-negotiable, that's just ingrained in how you show up in the world and how you show up for yourself and others. So again, kind of running through our framework here of the 4 steps to being a nourished leader. So tuning into your basics. So what works for you may not work for other people and vice versa. So knowing that the things that work for you to tune into yourself may look different than they look for others. And as I mentioned before, that willingness to tune into your body's needs and take action towards meeting those needs is one of the most powerful things that you can do. Taking some time to manage your stress. Again, it doesn't matter what we're doing, it's our relationship to the thing that we're doing that does cause that stress. So those 4 steps of bringing awareness, bringing curiosity, making a choice, and then dropping your judgment. Really kind of that framework that you can continue to play around with. And then choosing to nourish yourself on and off the plate. So being able to tune into those energy gains and energy drains and understanding, where those circles are versus where your stars are. And if you're wanting to spend more time on those energy gains, being able to take small steps to doing that. And if there are things in that energy drains column that you can't change right now, going back to that stress management framework and changing your relationship to that thing that is causing the stress can be the game changer there. That maybe makes it a little less draining for you. And then again, finding your own definition of success. So asking yourself those 4 questions. Am I doing what I want in the way that I want? Is it affording me the lifestyle that I want? And how do I feel along the way? Using that as a gauge to really dig into broadening your definition of success. So I'll pause there. I know that was a lot of content in a little bit of time. I want to make sure we have time to answer questions, and if anybody else is wanting to share any information about either self-care or stress management that they found really helpful, any other tools, feel free to pop those in the chat. One thing I really want to share with this group is that today is the first day I'm accepting applications for the Nourished Leader Coaching Collaborative. So it will be a group coaching experience with just a few women where we'll be really diving into a lot of the work that we did here today in much, much more detail. It's a 6-month program. It'll be live via Zoom conference call. We'll meet twice a month, and you'll really be able to go from kind of that just surviving mode to that thriving mode. So if you're wanting to join, I would love to have you there. I'm offering a 15% discount to the expat women community, and I'll put the link in the chat now. But again, really want to open it up to questions or feedback people have, anything that we didn't get to cover today that folks are wanting to cover. Janelle said, I find journaling very therapeutic and introspective, and it helps her tremendously over her lifetime. Yeah, absolutely. Journaling can definitely be a way to kind of see things from a different perspective. Absolutely. Thank you for letting me know that it was helpful and that you appreciated it. Thank you so much for being here today.